McKay wrote a piece this year entitled "The Visionary of Trump 2.0," in which he takes a look at Russell Vough's potential impact under Trump's second presidency, which I'm thinking we might see quite soon. We'll get to that in just a moment. Mara, I want to start with you, though, on my question. In terms of the American people, busy, hardworking, maybe a little bit tuned out, like exhausted by the news. Are they really clued into what's at stake? How quickly would Americans feel the cuts to health care if Republicans get what they want?
Well, one thing to consider here is that despite the bravado that Republicans and the president in general are showing on the government shutdown, and they're trolling Hakeem Jeffries and they're acting quite aggressively, but behind the scenes there's serious concern because 62 out of 75 of the congressional districts across America, where at least 10% of the population is enrolled in the ACA, the Health Care Act, are actually in red or red-leaning states. So this is something that is a pain point for Republicans, for Donald Trump supporters. And I think that the White House knows that. So this can only go on so far before the American people feel that pain. And then on top of that, you just have the enormous economic uncertainty that this is adding, not necessarily into the markets, but into the economy that Americans actually live and work in. So jobs numbers, still uncertain. We don't have good jobs data. We know that Americans are struggling not only with higher prices, but also with a really tight job market. So it's not going to be long before Americans feel this pain. The question is, will they know who to blame?
So let's underscore that point. We were supposed to get jobs data today. It's the first Friday of the month. We won't because the government is shut down. Many had expected that the jobs report might have been pretty weak. The private sector one was earlier. The ADP run was earlier this week. So, Molly, you just heard Leader Jeffries, the full interview about an hour or so ago. What do you think between he and Leader Schumer? Are Democrats making the right arguments?
So, look, Donald Trump ran on this idea that he was going to make things cheaper. Right? Remember his weave about bacon? He was going to make things cheaper. So things are not cheaper. And if anything, the Obamacare premiums will go up by huge margins. That is the major argument of this. I think there are some messengers, and this goes back to Mika's question, like, can you break through to the American people? There are people in the Democratic Party who break through to the American people, who have millions of followers on social media, who do interviews that really break through. And then there's the leadership. And the leadership, for whatever reason, cannot message the way that a lot of other Democrats in the party can. And so the question is, why can't the leadership use those people to message? And I don't know the answer, but you'll see. I mean, Bernie and AOC did a 2-minute explainer of the shutdown, which got millions of views, and a lot of people in the center or the right were saying it was just a very good explainer. This stuff is not so easy to explain. So the big question is, I wonder why leadership won't use people that connect with American voters and can make this information very clear. And I think it's a real question.
McKay, in your piece published back in May, you wrote in part, quote, "The opening act of Donald Trump's second term was defined by the theatrical dismantling of much of the federal government by Elon Musk and his group of tech-savvy demolitionists." But that version of the story misses a key character, Russell Vought. Behind all the Doge pyrotechnics, Vought, who serves as director of the Office of Management and Budget, is working methodically to advance a sophisticated ideological project decades in the making. If Musk is moving fast and breaking things, as the Silicon Valley dictum goes, Vought is taking the shattered pieces of the federal government and reassembling them into a radically new constitutional order. Explain that last part, if you could.
Yeah, this is something that I think people really need to hone in on. I know there's a lot of talk about the politics of the shutdown, and that's important, but Russell Vought is a very sophisticated behind-the-scenes operator who is seizing on this moment to finally cement ideological goals that he has been pushing for a very long time. He has long believed that the federal government, the civil service, is teeming with closet Democrats who sabotage conservative policies, advance left-wing ones. I should say this is actually a common argument that Republicans have been making for a very long time, where Vogt diverged from the mainstream of the Republican Party decades ago, was that he believed in the so-called unitary executive theory, which essentially argues that the entire executive branch should be absolutely controlled by the man in the Oval Office, right? He wants to see independent federal agencies either politicized or eliminated. He wants to see the civil service gutted and repopulated with presidential loyalists. And if he can't get exactly what he wants, he can take this moment. And they've been pretty open about this, the Trump administration. He can use this moment to lop off large parts of the federal bureaucracy that he believes are insufficiently loyal to, on board with Donald Trump's agenda, and make those cuts permanent. Basically unravel the federal government to the point where Democrats, if they ever take back the White House, will not be able to put it back together again.
Yeah, and as I note in the Atlantic today, you know, that Vogt has sort of taken on this almost larger-than-life presence in the left, and he's spoken of in the same sort of hushed, dark tones as like Stephen Miller. He's like the boogeyman right now, and the White House knows this. And not only, at minimum, Vogt looms as a bargaining tool, the bad cop, if you will, who could fall through all these threats. But as McKay says, he actually could try to sort of redo and slash the bureaucracy altogether. For more, let's bring in the co-anchor of CNBC's Squawk Box and a New York Times columnist, Andrew Ross Sorkin. Andrew, good to see you. We are obviously in the early days of this shutdown so far. What is the early sense from the markets? How are they reacting to it? And of course, as we just discussed a few moments ago, normally we'd have you on today talk about jobs data, but we don't have any to peruse.
Another example of what happens when you don't have a government that is open. I think the prevailing view on Wall Street right now is that we will get a deal of some sort. The Democrats will come to the table. The Republicans may come to the table with what, I don't know, but that this won't be a prolonged and painful scenario that goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks that has a demonstrable income or outcome to the economy. And I think that what most investors would tell you is they're looking at past history. And the truth is that if you look at the past history of government shutdowns, oddly enough, as counterintuitive as it may very well be, the stock market has historically ended up at a higher place than before these shutdowns have occurred. And I think that that is ultimately, as painful as it is for the government workers and for everybody who's dealing with this and all of the uncertainty that it invariably creates, for whatever reason, historically at the end of these things, the market has been higher. And I think that weighs on professional investors.
Yeah, certainly. The market continues to go in that direction for now. Andrew, let's turn. We mentioned a story earlier in the show about Apple removing an app from the iOS store it's like ice detection. It would let people know when ICE agents might be around. Take us behind the scenes here as to why Apple agreed to do this. Is this another example of, you know, a big tech company kind of just deferring to the White House's wishes, bending the knee?
Well, look, there is no question that Pam Bondi was upset and frustrated that these apps existed and put pressure, it sounds like, on Apple to remove them. The question is, what was the purpose of these apps? And the truth is, if you look at the purpose of these apps, it was to be able to identify ICE agents and be able to see them effectively on a map. You know, the killing that happened last week happened after the killer, if you will, looked at one of these apps. We don't know how much the app itself ultimately resulted in what ultimately happened. Having said that, you know, I think there's a fair question to be asked whether apps like this should exist, why these apps would exist. I like to think that they're not meant for folks to use to target ICE agents, but more, in truth, for people to avoid the ICE agents, which raises its own questions. You know, for many years, and I've always sort of thought to myself, why is this allowed? You know, if you go on to Waze or Google Maps, you have folks who identify on the map where the police are on the highway or on the street. Why are they identifying where the police are? They're identifying them so that people can evade speeding in those places. That is the purpose of it. Hopefully it's not meant to go target those police officers, but for whatever reason we allow that. I'm not sure I would. Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't, but I think that that's sort of a larger debate in America.
Yeah, no question there. CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin. Andrew, thank you as always. McKay, last word to you here. Just, knowing what you know about Vogt, and you profiled him so well, and the sort of the mercurial nature of President Trump when it's come to these shutdowns. Let's remember, in the first term, it was relentlessly bad cable news coverage eventually caused Trump to blink. That's why he came back to the table. What do you think his appetite for that would be this time around?
Well, this is the biggest disadvantage that Vogt has, which is also kind of his secret power, which is that he is not sensitive to the politics of the shutdown. Vogt, like I said, has this decades in the making ideological project he's trying to advance. He doesn't really care if Republicans in Congress are hurt from it in the long term, or probably even if President Trump is hurt politically. President Trump does care about that stuff. He cares a lot about how it plays in the media. He cares about poll numbers. He cares about Republicans in Congress calling him up and saying, hey, you gotta end this. This is hurting us in our district. Vogt, to the extent that Vogt can accomplish what he wants to, he'll have to move pretty fast before the politics of this catches up to him.
All right, staff writer at The Atlantic, McKay Coppins, thank you. His article, The Visionary of Trump 2.0, is available to read online now.